I'm just going to cover sort of a range of projects that I've worked on and collaborated with others over 3 decades, which is a bit scary. So physical interaction is really how we all sort of mostly engage with the world around us. So our physical experience of the world is really sort of a consequence of our sort of lived experience of sort of physically interacting with our environment every day. So we tend to think very little about how to use, sort of a door handle, or how to adjust a chair, or how to sort of pick up an apple, etc. And touch is our first way of learning. So we understand objects by feeling their weight, balance, texture, and temperature. And once learned, we don't really have to think much about it. However, how we sort of sense the world can be sort of greatly impacted because of aging or some other form of bodily injury. And this can affect sort of how we see, feel, hear, and move. And so the examples sort of shown here are various sort of aging simulator suits. And these are really wearable devices designed to sort of mimic the physical limitations and sensory changes associated with aging. So it typically sort of includes components that sort of restrict movement. So there might be sort of weights and kind of resistant bands that you attach to your body that sort of simulate sort of muscle weakness or joint stiffness. There might be impaired vision, so you might wear some goggles that might sort of mimic conditions like cataracts or glaucoma. And there may also be earplugs that you might wear that sort of simulate sort of loss of hearing, and also gloves that you can wear that sort of mimic having arthritis or loss or sense of touch. So these suits are primarily sort of used in training and education to kind of increase empathy and understanding of the challenges sort of faced by older adults through a physical form of simulation. So in a sort of comparison here, so we've got virtual reality, wearables such as head-mounted displays, we've got haptic gloves, vests, and sort of body tracking, which kind of offer experiences that allow interaction with a simulated virtual space. So conceptually, both the aging suit and these VR peripherals kind of rely on sort of temporary sensory or perceptual changes to kind of achieve their goal. But also similarly, VR technology impairs you as a user, where you kind of can lose a sense of your body by sort of, the technology itself is actually altering or blocking sensory signals that you might receive. So for example, the headsets themselves will sort of block, will reduce your visual clarity of your surrounding environment. And it seems that many of these sort of peripherals can diminish a sort of awareness of our physical body. So as an architecture student in the mid-90s, this is an early photograph from 1994, I was fortunate enough to try out one of the earliest VR sort of head-mounted displays at the Technical University of Eindhoven, and it was one of the sort of few architectural research labs that provided access to this sort of technology at the time. what you see there is what's called a division divisor system, which at that time cost about $500,000. It could render about 10,000 polygons per frame at 10 frames per second on 2 QVGA CRT screens. That's 320 by 240 pixels. So the system was able to track your sort of head movement and position within a sort of 4-meter sort of square or range. It used 2 computers. There were 3 breakout boxes to convert the input and output signals. And it was simple to use if you had a couple of days up your sleeve. But as complex as the system was, I still recall that it was able to provide a sort of quite a profound immersive experience, yet it was quite disembodied. It was quite uncomfortable and nauseating to use for any length of time. So from this point, we're sort of shifting sort of 10 years later. I was interested in exploring sort of how we can create interactive experiences that sort of accounts more for the sort of the human body and the human experience. And a lot of my design thinking early on was inspired by concepts from embodied interaction design, which was a theory developed by human-computer interaction designer Paul Durisch in 2001. And so his embodied interaction provides a sort of a design framework that focuses on a first-person sort of lived body experience and its relationship to the environment. So Durisch's perspective is attempting to unify the sort of physical affordances of the world with computer worlds through a sort of a design approach that relates to developing user interfaces that kind of closely match our sort of everyday experiences and abilities. So kind of in short, designing interfaces and user interactions that are more natural, they're more tangible, and they're more intuitive to use. So I'd like to just briefly share 3 examples of work where I've been involved in the design, and they sort of encompass sort of an embodied interaction sort of way of thinking in those projects. So this is one of the first projects which I worked with Lawrence and another artist, Mark Guglielmetti, in 2001 to 2004, which was here at RMIT. And we were exploring interactive sort of digital environments using a multi-user system that dynamically adjusts visual and acoustic elements based on user input. So we're utilizing head tracking technology for this project, and users could collectively, up to 4 users could collectively navigate and modulate an abstract virtual environment through a shared interface we called the attention span tracking system. So this setup encouraged a sort of communal human interaction where sort of user cooperation would influence the experience. And the interface was really around sort of emphasizing the importance of sort of collective interaction in shaping the digital experience. So the interface itself would track head movements via a small device attached on top of stereoscopic glasses, and that allowed the 4 users to collaboratively sort of navigate the virtual space. And so by moving their heads or line of sight, users could kind of collectively influence the stability and the dynamics of the space, which was really around fostering a sort of shared sense of presence among the participants. through that sort of cooperative interaction. So as an example, if everyone was looking at the same spot on the screen, that would enable the navigation or your movement through the space to move towards that particular spot you were looking at. And if you were all looking in different locations, the environment would come to a halt or would a pause in some ways. Anyway, so fast forwarding, that was in 2001 to 2004, fast forwarding another 10 years. This is a second example, is called Resonance, which is a custom designed multi-user audiovisual tool. And its primary purpose is to facilitate improvised music and sound art making, particularly within community arts and disability contexts. So the interface is designed to enhance participation and encourage, again, collaborative and cooperative sort of interactions among performers. So the system is designed to be flexible and adaptable to support kind of a wide range of physical interactions, whether users are engaging in kind of solo performances or collaborating with others. I'll just trigger this animation, this film here. So a key feature of the interface are what are known as tangible user interfaces, and these are physical objects that users can place on the tabletop display to control various features and events. So each object, when it's placed on the display, generates a sort of distinct sets of sounds, including things that we classified as notes, pulses, and atmospheric effects. And this allowed a sort of quite a wide range of musical expressions from very sort of limited sort of movements performed by the artists. So the objects themselves are designed to be sort of easy to grasp, manipulate, making them kind of suitable for users with varying sort of levels of motor skills. Okay, so fast forwarding from 2014, 2015 to today. So this is the most recent project I've been working on, which is called Hagoromo XR, which is an extended reality experience based on a Japanese no theater performance. So due to scheduling commitments of the no artist that we were working with, she was not able to attend rehearsals for the project that we were developing. So kind of faced with this issue, we decided to explore recording a virtual version of the artist. And so we used volumetric video capture technology to kind of record the performer from multiple viewpoints to sort of create a detailed 3D model, a video model that we could manipulate in a virtual environment. So from that, we developed, once we had the recording, we developed sort of workshops and rehearsals using augmented reality software so that the musicians could share and explore the spatial and sort of temporal dimensions of the recorded performance in real time. So the recorded Japanese performer is then used flexibly by the other artists and the other musicians as a kind of surrogate virtual avatar by the artists in Melbourne in sort of developing, rehearsing, performing and sound recording. So using a sort of a mobile phone or a tablet controlled by the artists, the AR video stream of the performer can then be used by the artists, and it can also be used during the performance as well, so that can be projected onto the stage for audiences to see. So just to wrap up here, So VR pioneer Yaron Larnier, he was one of the sort of founding sort of fathers, I guess, of the virtual reality technology, or particularly consumer level VR technology, back in 1989. And he recently sort of reflected on virtual reality itself, and just to quote him here, he says, "The ultimate goal of VR is to create a technology that will disappear completely from the user's perception, providing an experience that is indistinguishable from reality itself." Whether that's a good thing or not, that's maybe up for debate. But in other words, he's suggesting that the challenge of virtual reality is to make the interface disappear so that the user isn't aware of it. So to be engaged in an immersive experience is to be not distracted by physical discomfort, for example. So, if I must sort of work out how to use my body in VR to accommodate the technology, it's going to essentially distract my focus. So there's many insights generated from these projects, but I'll share sort of three that you could potentially consider in developing your own projects. But the first is to make the interfaces that you're developing for your projects natural and intuitive. So these interfaces that are embodied and perhaps shareable kind of enhances accessibility. So by using sort of direct interaction and unencumbering devices, we can create experiences that align more with our kind of natural behaviors and abilities. Also around the sort of empathy and sensory simulation. So tools like the sort of aging simulator suits and VR wearables kind of deepen our sort of understanding of sensory and physical challenges, particularly around the VR wearables. Which, in response to that, we can sort of think about how we might design more inclusive inclusive designs that sort of accommodate a much wider, diverse range of needs. And the final one is around collaborative and emotional connections. So, projects like Ecstasis or Resonance kind of highlight the possibilities of technology in fostering sort of a spatial awareness, maybe a co-presence and emotional connections with others that you're working with. And these designs kind of encourage all forms of communication, including non-verbal ways of communicating, and intuitive interaction as well, which really minimizes that need for sort of constant bodily reminders, which might sort of impede our sort of physical interaction. So the future of embodied interfaces really sort of lies in creating seamless, sort of intuitive experiences that enhance our natural interactions and really sort of can foster genuine human connections. And just to finalize here, that by prioritizing accessibility and empathy in the designs that we create, we can really sort of humanize technologies that not only meet diverse needs, but also enrich our kind of shared experiences in meaningful ways. Thank you very much for listening.